All rise. The court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Dredd is presiding. The case of Annie Crabtree is being heard.
The prosecution is conducted by the public prosecutor Freeman. The defense is conducted by a barrister, Miss Jennifer Clifford. The floor goes to the prosecutor. The floor is given to Mr. Freeman.
Good morning, I'm Prosecutor Freeman and I'm the prosecutor in this case. It is my pleasure to represent the people of this state. On November 20, 2020, the defendant in this case is Anne Crabtree, the widow and the killer of Mr. Crabtree, who killed him with a blunt object, namely a vase, at 11:05 a.m., ran through the window, entered the house through the backyard door, and then, to maintain an alibi, went to the kitchen to prepare cocoa for her already dead husband, and went upstairs, where to her great surprise she found the body of Mr. Crabtree. At the conclusion of the case, we will ask for a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Freeman. The floor is given to Annie. Do you accept the accusation?
No, I'm not guilty.
Okay, the floor is given Miss Jennifer Clifford.
The Honorable Judge and Honorable Jury, my defendant, whose name is Annie Crabtree, is not guilty of this terrible crime. You see, Annie is a fragile and gentle girl by nature. So imagine, how could she take a silver vase and strike a fatal blow and jump out of a second floor window while she was in evening dress? Just imagine how much force should you have not to just injure a person but kill him totally. How could a girl do it? Moreover, what was my defendant's intention to kill her husband? Actually, she has another man who she loves for a long time. His name is Michael Williams, so Annie wanted to break up with Alec, but couldn't think of a reason, and here appeared a letter that solves all the problems without hurting the feelings of her husband. Yes, Annie respected her husband's feelings, and she didn't want to hurt him neither mental nor physical. And we have evidence. We will offer it during the court session. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Clifford. The floor is given with your witnesses.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution will call 5 witnesses to the stand. We will call Constable Jane, who was the first on the side of crime that day and gathered all the evidence. Also, we will call Inspector Johnson, who was investigating this case. Also, we will call Eleanor Taylor, who can describe the details of the murder. Lastly, we will call Susie and Mr. Fairfax, as they will be, and Mrs. Fairfax, as they will be needed in further conversations with them.
Constable Jane, you may proceed to the floor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I was one of the first who arrived at the scene of the crime that day. They found a body of a man. When I finished examining the body, I started searching for evidence. I found a cigarette butt next to the body of the deceased, a piece of red material near the window, a note in Anne's bag. Also, I found the silver vase in the flower bed, which may have been murder weapon. I marked the evidence with special pages. Then I passed this information to the investigator.
Thank you, Constable Jane. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we will give the word to Inspector Johnson.
Inspector Johnson, you may proceed to the floor.
When I came to Mr. Crabtree's house, I found there his wife, Mrs. Crabtree, his brother, Daniel, Mr. and Mrs. Fairfax, who are the old friends of the Crabtrees, and the maid Susie. Initially, they all were suspects in this case. But after we had carried out an investigation, we identified the murderer and made this version of the crime. At first, Mrs. Crabtree quietly entered the study through the door at about 11:05, while Mr. Crabtree was writing a letter sitting with his back to the door. Then Mrs. Crabtree took a silver vase and hit her husband on the head with it.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes, Miss Clifford, what's the matter?
I want to ask a prosecutor, was an experiment testing the impact force conducted?
Yes, it was. We want to call on Miss Taylor so she can explain us some details.
Okay, objection accepted.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. After forensic analysis, it can be concluded that the Mr. Crabtree's death resulted from head injury. The time of death was around 11:07.
Right. Miss Taylor, can you tell us, please, was it possible that a hit was made by a woman?
Yes, it was possible.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you can continue.
Thank you. After the lethal kick, Mrs. Crabtree hit her husband in anger for a couple more times, and exactly then she accidentally broke his watch that stopped at 11:05. When anger had passed off, Mrs. Crabtree was shocked and started to smoke to calm down, and then threw a cigarette end near the body.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's happened again, Miss Clifford?
Have you done an examination of cigarette butt?
Objection accepted.
Yes, we've done the examination of the cigarette butt and we found some marks of Miss Anne Crabtree's lipstick.
Okay, continue the story, Inspector Johnson.
Thank you. As Mrs. Crabtree was very nervous, she forgot to remove a cigarette end. Next, Mrs. Crabtree decided to create an alibi and to hide a murder weapon. She opened the window and jumped out of it with a silver vase. But while she was jumping out of the window, her red dress was accidentally caught on the windowsill.
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman, you found the dress?
No, we haven't found it.
Okay, objection accepted.
Then Mrs. Crabtree hid a silver vase in a flower bed next to the house. And after that, she entered the house through the front door, went to the kitchen, and told her maid that she wants to prepare a bedtime cocoa and to bring it to the husband.
All right, I will have to interrupt you, Mr. Johnson, because we will have to call on Susie to answer a few questions.
Miss Susie, you may proceed to the floor.
Susie, we know you have been working good for Crabtree's family and you were not an accomplice in the crime. Haven't you noticed any unusual behavior from Mrs. Crabtree when she came to make cocoa for Mr. Crabtree? She must have been shaking from the stress she was suffering from.
No, yes.
All right, thank you, Susie. We'll return to you later. Inspector Johnson, would you continue, please?
Yes, and after all that, at about 11:15, Mrs. Crabtree went to the study and told everybody in the house about murder like she saw it for the first time. Also, we're sure that Mrs. Crabtree had already known that her husband had relations with Mrs. Fairfax by the time of the murder, as we have found a note from Elise Fairfax to Alec Crabtree in Mrs. Crabtree's bag. So the main motive of a murder is a desire for revenge for husband's adultery. And that's all.
Thank you, Inspector Johnson. We'd like Mrs. Fairfax to answer a few questions.
Mrs. Fairfax, you may proceed to the floor.
Alice, we're sorry that this is probably ruining your marriage now, but if you really loved Mr. Crabtree, then please tell us if you went out to the backyard at 11 a.m.
Yes, the victim, Ellie Crabtree, was my lover. I don't want anyone judging me. I'm just a woman who wants to love and be loved. My husband is a careless and very impulsive man. Sometimes I think he is married to his job, not to me. Our marriage is a mistake, and Alec managed to show me this. I know our relationship with Alec was emerald, but I loved him and he loved me. The day Alec had to tell his wife, Mrs. Crabtree, about our relationship, he wanted to leave her. And we were supposed to meet in the garden at 11 o'clock. That's why I went outside at 11, saying I felt warm and needed fresh air. I had been waiting for 5 minutes for Alec, but he did not come. Even so, he was a very punctual person. He hated when anyone was late, and he never been late in his life. That's why I went to the Crabtree's home. I've been so worried about Alec. My heart felt the wrong way, and now we know I had good reason for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairfax. Now we will call on Susie again. So, Susie, you should have heard Mrs. Fairfax come back from the backyard. So you should also hear Annie come back into the house. Didn't you find it strange? You don't have to answer this question, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, the strange thing is that no one noticed Annie leaving the house. All because Annie killed her husband and escaped through the window where a torn piece of her red dress was found. So, Annie, do you still consider yourself innocent?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Miss Clifford, you may proceed with your witnesses.
Okay, firstly, we will call coroner Eleanor Taylor. So, is it possible that the blow was struck by a woman?
Yes, sure.
But also, is it possible that the blow was struck by a man, not woman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And next we want to call Battlefield Overwatch. Could you say that Annie is quite balanced and calm by nature woman or not?
Yes, I'm sure she could not do it. And if test results confirm that she is mentally healthy and well balanced.
Thank you. And now we want to talk to Alex's brother, Daniel. Daniel, did you stand out with your brother the night of the crime?
Yes.
And is it true that you're a gambler?
That's true.
Were you aware of the will your brother made?
Yes.
And where were you when your brother was killed?
I was watching TV downstairs.
But can anyone confirm this?
Of course, I was watching TV with Mr. Fairfax since 11 o'clock, and at 11:05, Alice Fairfax joined us.
Thank you, Daniel. So now we want to talk with Mr. Fairfax. So Mr. Fairfax, did you know that your wife is having an affair?
Yes, I know about this.
And is it true that you had negative feelings for the victim?
Yes.
And were you jealous?
Objection, Your Honor. I think this is a relevant question to the case.
Yes, Mr. Freeman. Objection accepted.
Where were you at the time of the murder?
I just watched TV with Daniel.
Well, so could your jealousy be the motive for the crime?
Objection, Your Honor. I think this is also a relevant question.
No, objection rejected.
Well, Your Honor, I will call one more witness. She was out of the city and couldn't be here, but at the last moment she returned.
Objection, please. The witness was not announced on the list before.
Was? Seriously? Okay, objection accepted.
But please, she is a key witness for us. Your Honor, she is the key witness for us. Is it possible to ask her a few questions?
Yes. Okay.
So, Elizabeth Jones, what relations do you have with Annie, and do you know where Annie was and what she was doing at the moment of the crime?
Yes, Annie Crabtree is my best friend, and we've been friends for over 10 years. The terrible night I was visiting my parents, and at the parents' house I realized that I'd lost my house key, and I decided to call Annie. It was about 11 p.m. I complained to her for a long time, and I asked her to check my apartment. She said she would definitely go. Our conversation lasted about 10 minutes. Yes, 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. So we can provide explosive from the phone line of the telephone talk. Thank you.
Right, honorable judge, at the conclusion of the case, we would ask you to find the defendant guilty that the state has not met its burden of proof. Thank you.
Okay, the court takes an adjournment to consider new evidence. The lawyer and the prosecutor to my study now.